We have this belief, most of us, that listens equals success. And I can tell you that for many people, the listens, it's just a vanity metric. Podcast Growth Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Podcast Growth University, where we talk all things podcasting all the time. I hope you enjoyed the latest episode. It was episode number 34, What Really Matters When It Comes to Podcast Ranking. Make sure you check that episode out. That's one that you'll be able to listen to and hopefully re-listen to in the future, and you will still find value in it today. For episode number 35, I think I mentioned this last week, there is a big difference between listens and listeners. So the thought behind doing this episode is pretty simple. When I do a podcast breakthrough session, and I've done so many over the last couple months where I'm starting to recognize some common themes. One of the common themes that I'm recognizing is many people say to me, I say, what is the best use of our time today? This is what I say at the beginning of every one. Based on where you are and where you want to go, what is the best use of our time together today? I want to make sure this half hour is valuable. Where do you think we should go? And what a lot of people say to me is, I need more listeners. And I say, okay, tell me more. And I need more. I want to get more downloads. I want to get a bigger audience, all of this stuff. One of the things that I've realized over the however many years, 2017, what is that, 6 years? Over the last 6 years is a lot of people don't understand the difference between a listen and a listener. And I'm not saying just in a measurement way. This is what I mean. When somebody comes to me and says, I need more listeners, what I tend to do is I say, okay, what's the difference between listens and listeners to you? And we have this conversation. Now, this is my thesis. This is what I've seen. You are way more worried about getting listeners rather than getting your listeners to listen to more episodes. So here's what I tell people. Okay, cool. Let's say you have 100 listeners and you drop one episode per week. So you drop 4 episodes a month. You have 100 listeners. Let's say they only listen to 2 episodes a month. That's 200 listens a month. What if they were to listen to 4 episodes a month? You would double your listens with the same amount of listeners. This is why it's so important. It's hard, right? Because I'm looking at all the other episodes we've done. One of the biggest things, and we've talked about this, is the titling of the episodes. When you take an episode and you reverse engineer the title and say, okay, I'm going to create a title that is based on the 25 to 50 buzzwords, that's based on the 25 to 50 problems of my ideal listener. When I create that title, I will get more listens, even from the same amount of listeners. My fear with many podcasts is simple. We don't have anywhere for the people to go after they listen to the episode. So when I'm saying I want to think more from the perspective of how do I get our current listeners to be more involved with the podcast, that's why setting your podcast up like a business is so important. Because if you think of it like a business, okay, what are the ways to make more money in a business? You can raise your prices, aka change your margins. You can get somebody to purchase something more often. Okay, or you can upsell somebody and get them to buy something more expensive, right? There's only so many ways to get somebody to make more money in a business. You either sell more, you change the price of what you're selling, or you get people to buy more quicker. I like to think of the podcast as the same way. 3 ways to get more listens. In a way, you either, it's not really 3, but you get your current listeners to listen to more episodes. I wanted to talk about that today because I think we have this belief, most of us, that listens equals success. And I can tell you that for many people, the listens, it's just a vanity metric. It's just a metric that looks really good in a social media profile. It helps when you're getting guests on or whatever it is, but listens does not equate to success. I would rather have 100 listeners who listen to all the episodes, who are in a Facebook group, who attend a monthly mastermind, who are working with me in some financial capacity, because those 100 listeners are going to pour more into the business than potentially 1,000 listeners who aren't that engaged. So that's kind of this episode in a nutshell. There is a huge difference between a listen and an engaged listener, because an engaged listener is going to pour into other things, right? You might say, like, I don't like using the word because I think it can be negative, but you have a super fan. For Next Level You, say we don't have fans, we have family, because that's the way we want to treat our community. But for you, maybe you want to say, okay, I want to have super fans. I want to have people who like my content on social media, who listen to every podcast episode and tell their friends. They have joined my private Facebook group. They attend whatever freebie I have on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis. And they also have signed up for something or exchanged funds for value. That is somebody who is they have poured into your business and they are very invested in it. That's a listener. So my theory, my thesis, my experience has been that many people are too focused on listens, and they don't have their business, their podcast, set up in a way where a listen actually ends up going through the entire business model. They usually get lost after they listen to the podcast. So this is what will happen. And I've seen this happen many times before. You get an influx of listeners, right? So you go on a podcast. Well, let's say, you go on a podcast. It's a big podcast. They drop the episode. A lot of people see you and they say, wow, I'm going to check this out. So they listen to your podcast. Cool. Then what happens is after they listen to the podcast, there's nowhere else for them to go. So maybe they follow you on social media. They listen to the podcast episode. Then they just don't have anywhere to go for the next week until you drop another episode. Those people might not come back for the next episode if they don't like the title that you pick. That person might be gone. That listen, that counted as a listen, is no longer a recurring listen. That's why listens versus listeners is a very important thing to understand.
Hey, I wanted to give my experience working with Kevin and the rest of the Next Level University team. It has been such a seamless relationship. He is so easy to work with, Kevin, and he gives you all the information you need, but doesn't overwhelm you. He's also meets you where you're at. So, if whatever you want to do, he'll make it work. And it's just, there's no stress, there's no drama. And everybody else that I've worked with has been patient with me because I am not technologically savvy. So they've been helpful and patient and just encouraging. And it's just been a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend working with them.
You have to make sure that your podcast business is set up from a sustainability standpoint where if everything is connected the way it should be, somebody finds you on social media. Oh my goodness, I see this content on this person's social media. Oh, they have a podcast. I didn't know that. Let me check this podcast out. Ooh, this episode, and here we go, self-identify. You want your listener to self-identify. Ooh, this episode speaks to me. Ooh, this is for me. Ooh, I feel called out. Ooh, I feel seen, right? That is what you want a good title to do. So somebody comes across that and they say, okay, this is my type of podcast. This is my type of episode. Let me listen. They listen to your episode. You add a ton of value. You speak to them because you know your audience. I'm fired up today. I am fired up today. You add value. They get to the end of the episode and you say, hey, if you found value in this, make sure you sign up to our private Facebook group or whatever the next thing in your business model is, because you want to continue the relationship. You want to further the relationship. You want this person to be more invested in you because you're adding more value. I think that is a giant missing piece of the puzzle for many of us is we just expect people to wait around till next week when we drop our next episode. If you have a guest on that they don't resonate with, now they're only listening to 3 episodes that month, right? If you have another guest next week, now they're listening to 2 episodes a month. This is how your listens can go up and down, seemingly based on nothing. A lot of it has to do with the titles. I did a podcast breakthrough session today with 2 wonderful human beings, and they said that. They said, yeah, we haven't had any growth in 2023. And I pulled up the episode names, and I said, it kind of makes sense to me because most people are going to listen to your new stuff. Your new stuff doesn't suggest what problems you're solving. I said, would you listen to it? I wouldn't necessarily, because I wouldn't know what problems are going to get solved. So you're losing people. There's a big difference between gaining listens and gaining listeners and then turning them into raving fans, family members of your podcast. So this is why I am so big on having a Facebook group. I'm so big on having a monthly thing, like a monthly meetup, a monthly mastermind, a monthly masterclass, a monthly coffee and chill, something where your audience can get to know you behind the scenes, because again, that furthers the relationship. And this is why I'm big on having some sort of monetization point, not even from the frame of money, from the frame of if somebody wants to work with you, that means they're invested at a very deep level. So my through line for this episode, the whole point is, yes, getting more listens is great. Absolutely. But making sure you're maximizing your business based on the amount of listeners you currently have is the best way for you to get listens. Because if not, and you have a giant hole in your business, it's not going to work. Now, here's my frame for this. If you're somebody who has your financial life in a really good place and it's set up correctly and there's no holes in your financial life and the framework of finance for your life, if I give you $1 million, that's all you need. You'll be fine. If you have it set up correctly, you'll never need another dollar. But if I give you $1 million and there's a hole in your financial framework, you're going to lose that money. It's not about getting more money. It's about retaining the current money that you have, because if I keep giving you money, you're going to keep burning through it. That's how I think people are getting off track with their audiences. They're saying, I need more, I need more, I need more. No. You need to serve the ones you currently have. Even if it seems like it's not enough, focus on serving them. That's what's going to get you the growth. Most of us aren't going to go viral, right? We've been trying for 1,300 episodes. I mean, we haven't been trying, but we're never going to go viral. This show, Podcast Growth U, most likely never going to go viral. That's okay. It's not about that. It's about creating a sustainable system where if I get 5 new listeners, you want to hang around and you want to listen to every episode, right? So that 5, I do an episode a week, so that's 4. If I get 5 new episodes or 5 new listeners, that could be 20 downloads a month. Cool, right? I don't have a Facebook group yet because I'm just stretched beyond thin right now. So I want to make sure that when I do have it, it's something that I can actually pour into every day. And I don't think I currently can. I would say within the next couple months, I will. But then that whole question starts again, right? So here's a good frame. By the end of 2023, I will have most likely, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet because it's hard with 2 podcasts, but I will have some sort of social media presence adding value directly to podcasters. I have the podcast. So social media is layer 1. Podcast is layer 2. Layer 3 will be some sort of Facebook group, most likely called Podcast Growth Nation. After that, I will have a freebie where I do a monthly masterclass where I take a topic, I jump into Zoom live with whoever wants the link, whoever wants to join, completely behind the scenes. Awesome. And that'll be something I do every month. And then I already have monetizational or monetized points, whether it's Next Level Podcast Solutions. There's a bunch of other things that we have on the other side of the business. So for me, it's not necessarily as important to make money here for a financial side, but for the relationship side, it is. Imagine if you work one-on-one with me. Really think about this. And this isn't me selling you. If you work one-on-one with me behind the scenes, everything I say on this podcast is going to speak to you differently. And you're going to look at the content I post differently. And hopefully you'll like me, but you're going to look at things differently. Everything I post will be more powerful. Every episode I post, you'll feel like I'm speaking more to you. I want that for you and your audience. So that is why I'm sharing it the way I am. I am fired up today. I've been doing a lot of podcast coaching, so that is the reason why. So in closing, There is a big difference between listens and listeners. Make sure you treat the listeners that you currently have as well, as good, as well, whatever the right term is, as well as humanly possible, because those are the people who are going to determine whether or not your systems are actually set up in place, whether or not your systems are set up correctly. And then when you start being more intentional about the way you name your episodes, look at the data. Ooh, our audience responds really well to vulnerability. 5 ways to be more vulnerable. That episode did really well. Oh, okay. We did 4 really, really strong titles this month. We had the highest month ever. Interesting. Is that because we were exposed to new eyes, or because we got the people who were already listening to listen more? That is my question for you. As always, Podcast Growth Nation, I am offering free 30-minute calls, free 30-minute podcast breakthrough sessions. I'm not going to sell you on anything. I will literally pull up a whiteboard on Zoom. I will draw out your business, and I will say, okay, I already said it. Based on where you are and where you want to go, what is the most valuable use of our time today? And then we will jam. So if you're interested, please click the link in the show notes. I appreciate you very much. And if you need help with production, you need help with social media content, any of that, I am happy to add value there as well. Next week for episode number 36, a perfect example of why you can't win without consistency. I have a very good example. I have a very good story. I might even have some artwork created for it. I don't know yet, but it's a really good understanding, a deeper understanding of why you just can't win without consistency, especially in the podcast industry. So make sure you tune in as some extra necessity, as some extra motivation to make sure you drop the episode even when you don't want to. As always, I appreciate you all. I love this. I love podcasting. I love you all. If I can be of service, please let me know. And until next week, keep on crushing it and keep on podcasting. Talk to you soon.